You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your number one source for after-show entertainment.
Johnson.
From the AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, and streaming live on Ustream, this is AfterBuzz TV for American Horror Story. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest American Horror Story news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, picking up where the show leaves off and the buzz continues, it's AfterBuzz TV for American Horror Story.
Oh, gross.
Really?
Thank you for that. Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome to AfterBuzz TV for American Horror Story Season 1, Episode 6. We are halfway there.
Wowzers.
Piggy Piggy aired Wednesday, November 9th, 2011, last night. I am your host, Billy Nilles. Joined, as always, by the lovely David Schifoletti.
Hi.
And DJ Jesse in the booth.
There's like blue paint chips all over
Oh.
the table here. I'm trying to clean them up.
Lovely.
Sorry.
All right, so last night,
Piggy
Piggy, we see Ben taking on a new troubled patient. He finally has a new patient.
Well, he finally has a patient.
A patient who's real.
And isn't suicidal.
Right. So he takes on
For
this new...
some reason, though, all his patients that are living all end up dead.
Well, the other woman didn't end up dead. She wound up in the mental institution.
So might as well be dead. Hey, he got like one session out of her, and then she like tried to kill herself.
Right. Well, let's get into that first. I want to save some of the bigger stuff for later.
Okay.
So I figure we'll get Ben and Derek out of the way because it was sort of a more minor storyline tonight, but it was fun and interesting. So I want to talk about it first. So we see Ben take on this new patient played by guest star Eric Stonestreet from Modern Family, who we know more as a comedic actor. So it's kind of fun to see him in this.
I think he shined like beautifully in this like weird, dramatic, like crazy, manic man.
Right. Well, Eric Stonestreet has a relationship with Ryan Murphy. He was actually in like the last season of Nip Tuck. He guest starred in an episode as an insanely like morbidly obese man who hadn't left his house and sort of melded to
The
like,
furniture.
Yeah. And he was also there's typical of Nip Tuck, if you ever watched that show, Ryan Murphy's first Dark Side TV show. People were insane on that show as well, but they weren't
Not to this extent.
No, not to this extent. But also, it wasn't supernatural. They were just crazy and awful people.
Yeah.
And Eric Stonestreet's character on that was a bad guy as well. But so he has a relationship with Ryan Murphy, which it's nice to see Ryan Murphy. He like we talked about before with Kate Mara, how she was on Nip Tuck. He goes back to these actors who he has relationships for, who I think he actually writes for them when he creates these characters.
Well, I mean, it would make sense, having a friend in the industry,
right,
who's a writer and like a show producer, that you would want to also put your friends into your shows. Also, if you've worked with them before, you know their work ethic,
right.
You know how you don't
you
have
can
to
get out of them. And
exactly, you don't have to worry about trying to find an actor if you write for somebody specific and you know who will accept the role.
Exactly. So,
and I think this was a very good marriage of the two.
It was great. So this character Derek is terrified of urban legends so much that it's like completely paralyzed him in his life. He can't look in mirrors. He's terrified of Bloody Mary, of Candyman, and especially of the Piggy Pig Man, which I'm thinking is an urban legend that Ryan Murphy and company created because I've never heard of this.
They must have invented it. Also, I thought it was interesting if they did invent the Pig Man or whatever he called him, why it had to do with mirrors, because Bloody Mary, I thought, had to do with mirrors. I mean, it was sort of like the same thing.
And I mean, these urban legends, Bloody Mary does, Candyman has to do with mirrors. Also,
yeah, that's right.
They're always sort of like when you look in a mirror, that's when they appear.
What was Candyman again? What did you have to say for Candyman?
You just said Candyman. It's the same thing. There's just these, you just recite
Candyman
their
3
names.
times.
I don't know where all of these urban legends have come from. They're so weird that you just say someone's name. It's like Beetlejuice, Candyman, all of these. Like, just say their name 3 times and they come around.
Beetlejuice. Oh my God. Not an urban legend.
No, but very similar. You just say his name 3 times and he appears,
That's
as
true.
does Bloody Mary and the Candyman and the Piggy Pig Man.
And they all kill you.
Right.
Except
well,
for
Beetlejuice
Beetlejuice.
doesn't. He sends you on a fun ride. I love that movie.
He sends you on a fun ride.
Anyway, so Derek's terrified especially of the Piggy Pig Man, and we see Ben sort of trying to get over this fear through sort of like immersion therapy, where the way he sees the best to get over it is to confront it head on, to prove to yourself that it's not real.
Well, personally, I think that was the worst decision that he ever made as a therapist.
What's interesting to me is when we see Ben with patients, I don't know if this is new just because of all the troubles he's encountering by living in this house, but he seems to me to be a pretty terrible therapist.
Awful.
Like, awful.
He is like
awful
the
therapist.
worst therapist on the face of the planet. He is not patient. He's completely impatient with all of the patients that come in.
Yeah.
He doesn't stand for like their bullshit, and he's like, well, what's wrong with you? And they're like, I don't know, that's why I'm here. And he's
Right.
like, well, maybe you should figure it out.
Yeah. I mean,
And then come back to me.
it's really awful. Like, if I ever went to a therapist like that, I would sort of be terrified and not go back.
I'd be like, thanks for nothing,
Yeah.
you ass clown.
But I do believe, though, that with fears like this that are founded in things that are unnatural, I do think immersion therapy is what is used. I don't think that it's used to the sort of uncaring extent that Ben used it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could see using immersion therapy for something like this, but at least wait a couple sessions. You don't discuss like your fear on the first session, then the second session you're already going into a bathroom
By yourself.
with the lights off.
Yeah, exactly. It was much.
At least go in there with it.
It was sped up. I mean, obviously for the sake of an hour-long television
Right.
show, but
That I
of course,
understand.
it wasn't very realistic to see Ben if he's supposed to be the accomplished therapist. We think he is no one would do that.
No.
I don't think.
Well, I don't think he's that accomplished if they're that in need of money. And
Right.
you can't like get
Well, and
patients.
I think that's the question is, was Ben a good therapist and is now the house sort of affecting him to where he can't perform his work, or was he just never a good therapist? That's where I'm confused and wonder if
I never thought
him
about
performing therapy in this house is it's all just
because
not working.
Back in Boston, he was a teacher as well.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah, because Hayden was a student.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where he got most of his money from teaching as opposed to just
Practicing. Perhaps. It is a possibility, one that we have not been informed of fully yet.
Clearly.
Right, right. But so we see Derek talking about, I mean, it's really sad, this man who's so paralyzed, how he, likes this girl at work, but he doesn't even want to do anything with her because how can he ever take her home and explain that he has to cover mirrors? And it's really sort of this tragic character who you feel really bad for because this person is so paralyzed by these fears that are completely unfounded. There's no point in fearing them. They're not. I mean, in the world outside of American Horror Story, they're completely ridiculous, but they're so real to him and they're so terrifying. And Ben is so cold almost and just so like, well, you need to just confront it. Just get over it. And so he sends the poor guy home and
I don't know if he intended on him going home and having him try it on his own.
Right.
I think he was just like, you need to go home and at least like uncover the mirrors. Or I don't know like what his intention was because clearly the man was scared shitless at Ben's house.
Right.
Which was probably not the best place to be doing it
Well,
because the place is haunted.
And it scared him.
And then he went home and decided to drink and do it.
And he did
like
it.
got drunk and then like called for the Piggy Pig Man.
I
don't get it.
I think he did it the minute he got home because obviously he walked in the middle of a robbery. Someone was robbing his home. So he couldn't have been there for a while because those
Right.
robbers were hiding. So he must have gotten home and just done it, because when he left Ben's office, he said, I'm going to go home and do it. You're right. This is stupid. I need to face it. He sort of found some resolve with Ben being so cold to him and sort of making him realize that this was sort of childish and sort of stupid and it was time to get over it. And so he got this resolve, went straight home, went straight to the bathroom, and had the worst timing in the world.
I felt so bad for him.
And he confronts his fear of the supernatural only to be destroyed by the natural.
Such a tragic end. And I wonder how Ben is going to take it. Like, his patient goes home and is confronting his fears and gets shot in the head.
Right. By someone who thinks the robber thinks he was taunting him, thinks he knew he was in there. Who you calling a piggy, and shoots him.
So sad. He finally got over it. And
Or
now
was
he's
wanting
dead.
to.
Or
and
at least he's
was
taking
trying
the
to-
steps
yeah,
towards
right.
getting over his fear. And now he's dead.
And he's dead.
He's spent his
so
entire life afraid of nothing and dies in the bathroom.
It's like that. I feel like it would have been like a verse in Alanis Morissette's Ironic.
I was just gonna
like
say
the man
that.
who was so afraid to fly, and then the one day he did, the plane crashed. Like
Exactly. He's been so afraid of the bathroom mirrors that he's had them all covered up, and he finally uncovers it.
and
Gets
gets shot.
shot in the head. It's so bittersweet.
It is. It's so very sad. But it will be interesting to see if they play it out and see Ben, learn of what happened to him, or if they just drop
because this wouldn't be the first time that a patient of his either wound up dead or in a mental ward, because we saw during Home Invasion, they found his patient who was dead. She had been hacked up.
Oh yeah.
Remember?
Yes.
And then they were like, you were the last person to see her.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with the woman who ended up in the mental ward.
right.
And now this patient.
And it would seem to me that at this point, someone needs to be investigating.
Exactly. It would be like,
right.
his third strike where like someone,
It's like, these people are dying, and you're the last one who's ever seen all of them.
what are you doing?
Right.
It
Maybe
is time
you
to take
shouldn't
your
be a
medical
doctor.
license away.
So that is interesting, and it's a road that I guess we can save for predictions to talk about more. But
Yeah.
if we think the show might do that, so moving on from that, I want to talk about Vivian this week, and her
Oh my God.
the growth inside of her.
What the hell is growing inside this woman?
What is growing in Vivian? What did the rubber man put inside of Vivian? So this week, she's trying to find out what happened with the nurse. They brought that back because last week in the conclusion of the Halloween two-parter, we spoke about how they didn't really talk about that woman who passed out during the
ultrasound.
And they thankfully picked that up, and Vivian was trying to contact this woman to see what made her pass out, what made that happen. And she finds out the woman has quit her job at the hospital. This woman was scared so badly that she's pulled away from the world and only feels safe inside this church where she agrees to meet Vivian. And we see this woman maybe a little unstable, whether what she saw pushed her over the edge or whether she was maybe teetering to begin with. I think maybe a question that might become clearer down the road. But something,
mean?
well,
I'm confused by what you just said.
the woman, Janet,
Yeah.
the nurse, in her confrontation with Vivian, she
Yes.
appears to me to be sort of not completely of sound mind. Whether she knows what she actually saw or not, she also could be completely insane.
Okay.
The way that
yes, I
she
agree.
went off on Vivian. So
I
I'm
agree.
I do think she's coming back. So it'll be interesting to see whether that ultrasound is the minute she lost her mind or whether she's maybe kind of been.
Well, it seems to me like whether or not what she saw in Vivian made her quit or made her go bonkers, she seems to already have been a religious fanatic.
Yeah.
And as religious fanatics go, we know that they're not always the most stable people
Right.
in the entire world. We should probably give a disclaimer after that. Jesse, are you paying
The
attention?
views expressed herein are
Thank
those of
you.
the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
I'm just looking out for everybody.
Yes.
But because after we see the confrontation with Vivian, she is like spouting like Bible verse,
Right. And
her.
she.
which freaks me out to no end.
Yeah, she believes that there is. She's sort of, and what's interesting this week. I'm sort of running off on a tangent here, but we see Janet speaking in Bible verse, and I think sort of speaking of, was she speaking from the Book of Revelations as well?
She was, and I think
it's
that's
interesting because
yeah.
the girl who Violet met with from the Kokor girl, whose name I don't think anyone knows.
We never knew.
Also spoke of the Book of Revelations this week. So there was a lot of reference to the end of days biblically in the episode this week. I just put that together in my head, which is why I needed to say it before I forgot it.
I had put that together as well, and I was waiting for you to come to that conclusion. I didn't want to spearhead you.
Okay. But so she has pretty much told Vivian that she saw the beast. The beast is inside of her.
I saw the hooves.
Right.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
The beast is inside of you, and I saw the hooves.
Yeah. And Vivian
is like, okay, so you saw nothing. I thought that was a genius moment.
Yeah.
So what'd you see? I saw the beast inside of you. Oh, great. So you saw nothing, and the machine malfunctioned. All right. That's fine. I can accept that.
Right.
No, I saw the hooves.
And she continues to go on as Vivian rightfully
runs out of the church. Never meet anybody at a church. That is the moral of the story. Okay, everybody listening.
Okay. Meanwhile, Vivian is being taken care of. I'll put in quotes. Taken care of by Constance and Moira.
Well, the way that Moira, for me at least, it did seem that Moira did have Vivian's best intentions at heart this week, whether it be for the sake of keeping the baby alive or for Vivian herself. She did seem genuine in that respect. And I think Constance did to a certain extent as well.
Right. I do, but I fear that what they fed her was to start a process to a greater end of what's inside of her.
I agree.
Right. Right. I think there'd be no way to disagree with that.
No, I agree completely with that remark. I just,
Yeah.
What?
Don't you kind of feel like Moira, the reason she only said that is because if she was to get rid of her, Moira would have to go away with all the rest of the spirits. This is the only reason she gets the chance to be awake and up and doing things.
Right.
Right.
So
That is
I think
true.
it was kind of selfish in that aspect, and she used that excuse to play.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you're a dead ghost who can only live in a house, aren't you going to be a little selfish?
I totally agree, but this whole process in which Billy speaks of sounds a little bit negative, talking about hoofs inside her stomach.
Well, it could be a positive thing. You never know.
It could. I doubt it, though.
She could be giving birth to a fawn and not a devil.
What did you think when... oh my God, all the names are going out of my head. Constance said, "Why don't you cook it the way you used to prepare it for me?"
Yeah. That was...
So,
Well, my only thing with that was that I did Vivian know that Constance used to live in that house?
Well,
And did Vivian know that Moira worked for Constance?
I think that when in the first couple, either the first or second episode, when there was a confrontation with Vivian and Constance in front of them, I think she did mention that Constance used to be my maid, or that Vivian Moira, Jesus, used to be my maid. I do believe that there was a passing remark like that did announce that to the Harmons, that she used to work for her as well.
Because I don't remember that, and I was confused as to why she didn't
question it
and be like, oh.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that
That's
did
pretty normal.
occur. If anyone's listening and does remember when or where or why that happened, you can call in at 424-256-1729 and help clear it up for us.
It happened.
Or if it happened.
Or you just imagined it.
Set us straight. Call in or tweet us. But so Constance has brought Vivian this offal, this really awful, this...
I am shocked that you caught that word because she said it like 3 times and I was like, what?
Well, I knew what it
need
was
put
prior to the
the
show.
Closed captioning on because I don't understand that word.
I'd known what it was prior to the show.
You
because
did?
Top Chef, when there's always episodes where they make them cook with foods that aren't common and they use offal, like they make them cook with like glands, and
Disgusting.
yes, it is. And that's why it's in the challenge where you have to cook gross food. That's how I knew of it. So thank you, Bravo Television, for schooling me in the world of disgusting meats.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. But so Constance has brought over this offal, which she explains as this gland meat. It's part of,
She does say that it's part of the pig.
yes.
And she says there's a pancreas, which is like full of protein and all the B vitamins and vitamin C, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
I didn't either.
And
They
then
didn't explain that on Top Chef.
two other things.
There was just
Which
some
I
more.
don't
There was just some
remember.
glands that I don't think that.
I only caught the pancreas.
Yeah, because the
that-
pancreas was kept raw, as we saw.
Yes.
Moira cooked everything, fed it to Vivian, and it seemed like Vivian kind of enjoyed it. It probably was tasty.
I mean, it looked like she deep fried it. Everything is tasty deep fried.
Yeah. So
With a little
Vivian-
lemon and sea salt.
Right.
I mean, sounds
It
delicious.
sounded fine. As long I sort of felt like if she didn't know what it was and it was prepared for her, that's one of those things where you'll just eat it and you're like, okay, it tastes like what you wouldn't
Chicken.
question it,
Tastes like
right?
chicken.
It would probably have tasted like pork because it came from a
Well,
pig.
yeah. Oh, it's chicken with a little lemon and sea salt. Oh, thank you.
But as she's eating, Moira explains that she kept the pancreas raw because that is how it is supposed to be. It's how it's best eaten.
I'm sorry, you cannot eat raw
Raw-
meat.
No,
You will
No.
die.
you will get sick. But we see Vivian sort of bend over the plate and smell it, and the scene cuts, and we're left to wonder, okay, did she actually eat
I
that?
literally thought when she bent down to smell it that she was gonna pick it up with her hands and just like
Put it in her
savage
mouth.
woman scarf it down her face.
I was
and
waiting for
I
that
was,
too.
Like, about to hurl all over the
Well, I was
place.
waiting for that too because clearly this, and then obviously later when she ate the brain that was given to her raw, clearly this isn't this appetite isn't coming from Vivian. This is something that's coming from whatever's growing inside of her.
Well,
that
it
needs
might
this
because
food.
there are women that when they get pregnant do crave raw meat for the iron because they're like iron deficient.
a brain.
But brain and like pancreas.
I mean,
is
I would
not
just
normal.
She'd want like a flank steak.
Yeah.
Not
Not a brain.
no.
Which to me, get to the brain and then I'll tell you what I thought it looked
Right.
like.
But so what I got out of this was something, whatever's growing inside of her, you know, the Janet, the crazy nurse, saw hooves and saw the beast,
And whether or not she saw hooves, I mean, maybe that was just her way of explaining to herself
that there was
what
something
she saw.
unnatural. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. She was searching for an answer and she found it in the Bible because she was religious and that's what the Bible explained to her it would have been.
Exactly.
But that she saw something that she shouldn't have, that shouldn't have been there, that didn't belong in the womb if the pregnancy was the way it was supposed to be going.
Right.
Vivian can tell something's wrong. She's clearly having these dreams that are telling her something. She has a dream in the beginning of the episode where she's insanely pregnant and their hands are like reaching out of the stomach. That was so creepy. And I was glad she woke up when she did because I didn't want to see any more of that. I didn't want to know what was going to happen next.
Well, I didn't even realize it was a dream. I was like, okay, she's really pregnant now.
Well,
we
the-
skipped ahead 9 months.
Or the
Awesome.
pregnancy was just moving along so fast that she's
Yeah.
randomly gotten so large, which would have been such a leap even in the show to believe that she just kind of like, oh, I'm sitting here and I don't care that this has gotten so big.
Yeah.
But I feel like all of these things, there's this thing that's inside of her is, as it is growing larger and abnormally, even if it's not as big as it was in her dream, it's controlling her in some way. And I do think that that's what her being able to eat those meats was trying to explain to us without saying it. Because when she ate the brain, when Constance brings her the brain, and she sits down and she, you know, without question, without any sort of look on her face that explained that this is bizarre, she just ate it. She put some pepper, cut into it, and just ate it.
Okay. That's my favorite part. That she takes a bite of
But
it.
she
and it's like,
seasons it.
oh,
Needs pepper.
needs pepper. Not, this is disgusting. It needs pepper.
Right.
And I'm going to eat the whole thing and lick the bowl clean.
Right. Right. But then immediately afterwards, we like smash cut to her standing in the doorway looking at the dish.
Like horrified.
And she's horrified, sort of like she didn't really know what she had just done or why she had just done it, or was she even present when she was doing it, which sort of made me believe that at that moment, what was in her stomach was controlling what she was doing.
Right. I mean, who the hell knows what's going on with this woman? But you'd think that after all the pig that she just ate, all the pork that she ate earlier on in the day, that she wouldn't have the appetite to eat a whole brain, which looked oddly human.
Yes.
And a little bit like it was covered in spaghetti sauce and cheese. That's how I kept myself from throwing up.
Somehow that's even grosser to me.
Why?
Brain covered in spaghetti sauce and cheese. I can't.
Season it with a little marinara, some melted Parmesan.
No.
Eat up.
Yes, I do agree that it looked odd. It looked suspiciously human.
It looked too big
to be of any animal that I can think of besides ape.
Because that looked like a soup tureen.
Yeah, it was large,
and it
was
took
a
up
large
the
dish,
whole
and it
thing.
took up the whole thing. It was a very large brain, so I am concerned because, like, Constance.
Maybe that's what she realized. She was like, "I just ate human brains."
Perhaps. Well, hopefully no. Soon.
I hope she threw up afterwards because it doesn't seem like she ate. If she ate the pancreas raw and she just ate this brain raw, she seems to have no problems digesting it.
Yeah, and you would assume that something covered in raw blood and raw meat that
a pregnant woman,
that. No person could eat that.
Well, no person could eat that, but a pregnant woman whose like senses are heightened as it is would like get nauseous at the sight of it.
Yeah, or the smell. Yeah, so something is clearly amiss.
Yes.
And hopefully the amniocentesis that was performed will give some...
Big word alert.
The procedure she had done with the large needle.
Yes,
in
it
the
took me a
doctor's
second,
office.
but I did get there.
I think when she gets the results, there are going to be some more fears by doctors of what is inside her.
Yes. Well, they were checking for...
Because the amniocentesis
Down
is done
syndrome, right?
to check for any sort of genetic abnormalities.
Right.
That's what that is.
And you do it in your first trimester, so just in case, if you decide you can terminate your pregnancy.
Right. Yes. So.
And it is something I think that they do more often with women who are older.
And who've also
and
experienced traumatic pregnancies already. Like when people have already miscarried, they'll go and have those done because they're more at risk for things like that too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Look at you, Smarty Pants.
Yeah. But so it'll be interesting to see what happens with Vivian next week.
Yeah.
This was an interesting week, but I want to get into the
meat.
The meat.
The raw meat.
The meat. Yes, the brains of the episode, if you will. With Violet and Tate and Constance, we got some more answers this week. We finally got, I guess, the conclusion to what the Halloween two-parter presented to us in regards to Tate's backstory. A really chilling opening sequence this week.
Not so much scary, but
actually like
frightening.
Yeah, like just unsettling.
Yeah.
Because it was not supernatural and it was instead very real.
Well, yeah, because it happened in 1994 in this story.
Yes.
And Columbine happened when? 1990.
I believe 98 or 99.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, similar things
Right.
have happened in our existence. So
Yes.
seeing something like that on screen, whether it be small or big, is still very chilling.
Yes.
To witness.
What I loved the stylistic choice in that scene that we didn't actually see anyone get shot.
No, you did not.
There was
very
no
interesting.
gore, there was no wound. Whenever someone was taken down, you saw it from foot level by somebody else who was seeing it. We didn't see it from Tate's point of view. We saw it
No.
from the victim's point of view, which I think made it even more unsettling.
Yeah, and also you experienced the victim's fear.
Yes.
As opposed to the murderer's rage.
Yes. Yeah. It was really...
Which I think also just leads into more questions as to why Tate did it and why Tate looked the way he looked. Because as we see him now, he looks completely normal. And then in the flashback, he had like scars on his face.
Yes.
He was very pale, dead behind the eyes.
Yeah. What was interesting though is it's weird to me that his dream he sees himself looking differently
than
he
it
does
actually
as it
happened.
actually happened.
Which was also very interesting to me.
Right. And I was waiting for, because they didn't, my TiVo cut off the very beginning, so I don't know, but if I'm wrong, but I felt like we didn't see Tate until the very end.
You
of
don't
that
see
scene.
Tate till the
So
very end.
okay, thank you, because I was worried that they showed him at the very beginning, but I didn't think they
didn't.
did.
They just showed, in the very
You
beginning,
just
they
saw him
showed
walking from like the waist.
one of the characters running into the library and closing the door and barricading it.
Okay, so that, the way I was watching it, I guess that was obviously the intention. I sort of felt like maybe it wasn't Tate, because there was all these questions of,
Right.
was it Tate? Did he do it? Because you can't remember that he did it. So I was like, maybe they're going to reveal that it was somebody else or
That's
something.
what I thought at first, but then they do reveal that it was
Tate.
Tate, and then we find out later on as to why he can't remember that it happened.
Do we find out?
Yeah, the medium tells us. The medium tells us when Violet finds out that Tate is dead.
Right.
And she goes, Constance is in the house, and they go over to Constance's house, and she has the medium. She says that Tate is...
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
He doesn't even know that he's dead, and he's like sort of one of these spirits who still is in like a childlike state and hanging around.
You're right.
So he's
I
unaware
forgot
of
about that.
anything that happened up to the point when he died.
Right. You're absolutely correct. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah. So what did you think about the medium?
At first I was sort of like untrustful of her, but she does seem to be spot on.
Right.
But I still don't know if as a person or as a character she has the best intentions.
Yeah.
Because still to this point I don't know if Constance has the best intentions.
Right. Whatever part of this whole grand thing that Constance plays is so vague and so unclear.
Right.
Yes, and for her to be a friend of Constance, you were like, okay, well then where does she fall into it? Because I don't know if I can trust Constance, so I don't know if I can trust this person who Constance is friends with.
And she has very pointy nails.
Right. I love that actress. Sarah Paulson is like
so great.
One of my favorite actresses. I was so excited because, we knew that Eric Stone Street was going to be in this episode. I'd known that for a long time, and there was literally no talk of Sarah Paulson guest starring. And so when I saw her name in the credits, I was like, oh, Sarah, I love when Sarah's on TV. I was so excited.
She was very good as the medium, very chilling and like very reserved.
And I loved how she
that.
was talking about how Lifetime was meeting with her to do a show, and
Yes.
Violet was like, oh, I'm a medium who uses Craigslist but has an agent, and
Yes.
was kind of calling her out on whether she was
Craigslist medium with a Hollywood agent.
right. But then she sort of proves to Violet that she is for real, because she calls into question Violet's grandmother, and recalls Violet's grandmother on her deathbed, and how could she have known that? Clearly, there's no way. I don't think Constance could have known that. So I think that she's a woman who is actually in touch with spirits. The show wants us to realize that she is for real.
She is a real medium,
Yes.
I think, within the story of the show, but
whether she's trustworthy
whether
or
she
not.
is a good person is still in question.
But so she, through her, we also see that Constance is able to speak with Addie, which was a great scene. Constance was able to sort of atone for the way she treated Addie when she was alive. She was able to express some things that she wasn't when Addie was alive. And that scene with Jessica Lange and Sarah was so great. Jessica was so great in that scene with that grief that she was living through, and sort of the relief when Billy the medium told her, that she where she is now, she is a pretty girl, and all of that. It was a really great scene, very touching. There was a lot of touching moments this week. That, and also the scene at the very end with Tate and Violet, when he was expressing that he's never felt for someone like her before. I thought was very real and very genuine.
Which is so interesting to me, because as a spirit, whenever you see a ghost or like a spirit in any other movie or television show, they always talk about how when they're not with somebody, they sort of don't exist, really. They're sort of just like cease to exist, and then when they're communicating with someone is when they can really like live,
right,
in quotes. And he doesn't seem to realize that. Like, he sort of appears and he comes and he goes, and he doesn't see that he doesn't exist unless Violet's around.
Right. And what's so interesting that he doesn't know that he's dead. He doesn't know that he's a ghost, but yet he is able to control the things in the house.
And I think he
is
knows
aware of that.
That he can't leave the house either.
So that's very confusing to me because he on Halloween he obviously knew that was the only time he could leave.
Right.
So it's very weird to me how these two things add up and how that will be explained. Because it seems to be they're conflicting.
They are very
Yes.
conflicting.
Completely. But we do see that beyond I always call her Adelaide. Sort of giving Constance the relief that she wanted and the closure with her. She also says that she's so happy that she wasn't turned into a ghost, that Constance didn't get her there in time because now where she is, she knows the truth about Tate. And she's afraid of him.
Which I thought was a very interesting way for her to have had Addie's words come through, that she knows the truth about Tate and that she's frightened of him.
Right.
Which is
very interesting.
Because when she was alive, she was friendly with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But now she knows what he is. And whether that calls into question if how much Addie understood of the house.
Or how much she actually knew about Tate.
Right. Because she knew ghosts existed.
Or did she?
Or did she think they were just characters in her book? Because she and Constance had that conversation in the first part of the Halloween episode where,
right,
you know, the ghosts can walk tonight. And she says, we've known that all along. And whether Constance was appeasing her as making her believe they were just characters in the book, or whether she really was aware that they were things, I don't know. And I think that's a question that we were supposed to be wondering about and that we're supposed to be asking at this point in the game.
At least.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many other things that are hopefully will be tied up. There's so many like loose ends, but
I mean, thankfully we're only halfway through the
them.
season.
Thankfully, because if we were at a mid-season finale like every other show we're watching right now, we would be shit out of luck.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump to a quick commercial and we'll be right back.
Okay.
The biggest new media platform on the web just got bigger. More bandwidth, smoother streaming, lightning fast download.
Don't get technical with me.
AfterBuzz TV is making the jump to hyperspace. Join the fun at your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Look at the size of that thing.
AfterBuzz TV.
All right. Welcome back to AfterBuzz TV for American Horror Story after that decades-long commercial break we just took. I'm your host, Billy Nilles, again here with David Schifoletti. So every week we have been doing something special. We are calling it our American Horror Story Film Night. Each week we recommend a film to you, a horror film that sort of plays on a theme that is in this week's episode to let you continue the fun into the weekend. So this week we wanted to talk about the movie Urban Legend, obviously a main topic of this week's episode. Urban Legend from 1998, directed by Jamie Blanks, who I've never heard of. So
Never heard of Jamie
Just
Blanks.
want to give him a shout out if he's listening.
Love you.
Silvio Horta was the writer. Very interesting. Silvio Horta was the creator, executive producer, writer of Ugly Betty. So he went from Urban Legend to Ugly Betty. And
It's a logical jump.
Yeah, just it's
Seamless.
what you would do, of course. The movie stars a bunch of people who were sort of big in 1998 and maybe aren't so much anymore. But Alicia Witt, who was on Sybil at the time, was our heroine,
Oh
the
my
redheaded
God,
Alicia
that's
Witt.
right.
Yes. Jared Leto.
Bleed for Jordan Catalano if you watched My So-Called Life.
Rebecca Gayheart, Joshua Jackson, Tara Reid, and the fantastic Loretta Devine.
Like the amazing Loretta Devine.
In a role you always knew she was meant to play, the kick-ass college security guard. Clearly, Loretta Devine, star of stage and screen, was born to play a security guard.
I mean, she should have gotten an Oscar
Yes,
for this role.
right. So the movie takes place on a college campus with these group of friends. These murders. There is a course on the campus that is about urban legends.
Yeah.
One of those classes that are sort of very theoretical and talk about pop culture and that these kids are all part of.
Well, if you went to my college, something like this could have
No, those classes exist. I'm pretty sure there's one at mine right now, too. But murders begin occurring that are mimicking the urban legends that the kids are studying.
Yes.
And one by one, they're being offed
Because of this movie, to
Yes.
this day, when I drive by someone whose headlights are not on, I do not flash my lights at them. To this day.
Yeah. That one is scary.
Because
That's real.
That can actually happen,
Yeah.
I feel like. You flash your lights at someone and then they turn around and they
That has
run you over.
actually happened to me. Not the run over part, but back in Massachusetts, Cape Cod, living in the boondocks. I know exactly about that movie. We flashed our lights at somebody just because their lights were off, and they actually followed us.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
We didn't go home. We drove for. Luckily, we had.
I would drive for
14
like a
gas,
day.
Yeah.
nonstop.
Yeah.
See, that's the only one that like freaks me out. And I never knew about it until I saw this movie, and I couldn't even drive when this movie came out. And to this day, I will not flash my lights at
We
someone.
have a caller on the line who would love to talk to you guys.
We
Caller,
do?
you're on the line. What's your name? Where are you from?
Hi, caller.
Hello, sir.
Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller.
Hello.
Hi, you're on the
I
air with Billy and
apologize.
David.
I'm sorry, sir.
All right.
Caller,
so
you
back
still
to
there?
our urban legends.
We lost you.
Well, if you're listening, you can try and call back. We're not sure what happened, but thanks
I
for.
think we lost
She's
you.
at the front door.
Oh my
Oh,
god,
creepy.
don't even.
Anyway, urban legend. It's a fun. I wouldn't say it's like a great horror film, but it's fun and it's a good time. So if you like tonight's episode,
It's fun.
pick it up. Yeah, it's a good time. So let's jump into news and gossip real quick with DJ Jesse in the booth.
AfterBuzz TV News.
All right, so another Entertainment Weekly report with Ryan Murphy. Why doesn't Violet ever tell her parents the truth of what happened to Tate?
Oh yeah.
And I just want to say Ryan's favorite thing to say is "I think."
Yeah,
Well, yeah, because he can't actually say it.
he can't give it away.
Well, I think it's a very Romeo and Juliet relationship. I think in this episode, just when you feel she's going to do that and give into the tension, I think she sort of realizes that she has fallen in love with him despite his monstrous behavior, which of course he must pay for in some way eventually. It's that fantasy young love. It's a very romanticized creation, but what's interesting in future episodes is playing the tension of what do you do when you're in love with a mass murderer. That's her dilemma.
Very interesting. Eek.
Oh god.
What do you guys think he means by he must pay for it in some way eventually, meaning he hasn't paid for it?
Well, he hasn't
Well, he
yet
has-
because
he-
he's not aware that he has.
Exactly.
So in an extent, he hasn't.
So meaning
So
his
when
soul
he
is gonna go through it.
realizes
Okay.
that he's done what he's done, there is going to be some sort of
repercussion.
yeah.
So is Billie Dean Howard's character someone to be trusted? Is she telling the truth? I think she is telling the truth. I really do. When we created her, all of us in the writer's room have had some experience with psychics or not. I'm somebody that was very skeptical until I went to a woman who told me out of nowhere, "Is your father ill?" And I said no. He just had a physical and he's fine. She said, "You need to tell him to go back." So he did go back, and they found prostate cancer, and he died 2 years later.
Ugh.
So Billie Dean was inspired a large part by that experience. We're saying that, yes, she is legitimate. We are also really interested in the Zelda Rubinstein character from Poltergeist.
Who freaks me out to know.
Oh, Zelda.
Is that the woman that talks with the...
Yes.
She was
Oh,
like
I
really
love
short.
her.
and,
She was in
like,
Teen Witch.
Yes.
Too.
Oh my god, Teen Witch.
I love Teen Witch.
Teen Witch is one of my favorite movies.
This
How you
house
like
is
that?
clean.
How you like that?
You're watching that movie and you believe she has the power, but I'm obsessed with the idea that she's getting her own show on Lifetime. We wrote that part for Sarah. She and Jessica are really good friends in real life. We're writing right now in one of our final episodes, now the return of Billie Dean.
Yay.
The thing that we always kept saying is, well, isn't it pretty easy to get rid of a ghost? Like, how do you get rid of them? So she comes back.
Oh, good. I'm glad she's coming back.
Me too.
So who's Mary in Violet's flashback? Is that her grandmother? Yes, that was Violet's grandmother's deathbed, and in fact, that Billie Jean knew that proved to Violet the existence of other spirits, the beginning of her awakening.
Okay.
Now, whose awakening are they talking about? Are they talking about Violet's
Violet's.
awakening
Violet's.
with other spirits?
To know that spirits exist still in this realm, I think is what he means.
Because we did see her go back to the house and she went into
saw
the
everything.
basement. She saw everybody.
Yeah.
And Constance also used the term, when teenagers are in a transition.
Yeah.
Everybody's transitioning
Yes.
into something. So how did you get Eric Stone Street for this? Well, we've had a couple of cases where we've written things for people and then gone after them. Luckily, in every case, they've said yes. This was the case where we wrote the role for Eric. I've always loved Eric when he's dramatic, so I sent him the script and he said, "Why the hell did you think of me for this part?" I think he's so great. I love what the story is about. I think the idea that you attract fear to you.
That's what's so like sad about that, is that was his intention, that he was so afraid that he brought that towards himself.
Yeah, he like manifested
And I think that's sort of like
his own death in the
a greater
bathroom.
theme of this whole show, is like these people are bringing, there's so much fear of things that they're bringing this terror upon themselves because they are putting it out there.
It's like The Secret.
Right. In the worst perverse
possible way.
possible. Yeah.
So they asked him to tease next week's episode. Ryan said, Episode 7 is called Open House, and it's a very Constance-heavy episode.
Yay.
Finally, they find somebody to buy the house and leave, and Constance is not happy about that. Next week is definitely our most sexual episode, and it's very Constance-heavy with her trying to protect herself. And we meet another one of her children. It's very exciting.
Do you think that it's a different, like normal, like non-Down syndrome child?
Well, they said, "You told us that this kid is crazy, right?" Ryan responded, "Something's not right with that person. She did say that her womb is cursed."
But that doesn't mean that it couldn't be the child that she was talking about that was the picture of physical perfection.
But-
because there's no way it could be Tate.
Right. But
Why?
Tate, I feel like, had to have been the one who was the model of perfection, because she said that all the other children did have like something actually physically wrong with them. But Tate was the one who was like broken inside. I
Right.
think that was who she was
Maybe.
referring to then.
So why would you think that, David?
So this person would have to be like physically
reason.
something wrong. Who do you think it is?
I don't know.
Oh. All right. Well, we'll talk about it in a
Don't look
second.
at me like that.
Thank you for that, Jesse.
Thanks,
Let's
Jesse.
jump into some
And now, your AfterBuzz TV
Prediction.
Okay, so we were just talking about it. Let's stay on the train.
Yes.
So we know that we're seeing Constance now her one of 3. She has 4. We've met 2. We're gonna meet the 3rd next week.
Okay.
Something's wrong with this person.
And when they're crazy.
From
that's
the
all
mouth
we
of
know.
Ryan Murphy. But we do know, if we look back at the episode when Constance is speaking about how she has 3 more kids besides Addie, she says that 2 of them, the three of her children, had something wrong with her, like Addie. The 4th one was the model of physical perfection, but was broken inside. There was something
So
else
it
wrong
had-
with
that
them
has to be
because her womb was
Tate.
cursed. That kid had to be Tate because he went on the murder spree and killed all these people. I'm hands down, that has to be what that was. So that stands to reason that the next 2 kids, one of whom we're meeting next week, has something wrong with him in the vein of Addie.
Well, maybe, I mean, doesn't necessarily mean that he has to
I don't think like Down syndrome,
be
but
a Down syndrome child. He could maybe have like little arms, like underdeveloped arms, or like maybe he's a
that just
dwarf.
made me think of Kristen Wiig on SNL when she has
I
the
know.
baby.
Oh my god, that's what I thought.
When she's
too.
Eunice and she wants to
Yes.
pop the bubbles.
Or maybe they have like something like a hair lip or something.
Right,
It could be anything.
right. I'm excited though.
Yeah.
I'm excited to
too.
see more of Constance. I mean, she needs another one now that Addie's gone. She needs something else.
Where
to
are
come
these
back in.
kids coming from, though? That's my
what's
thing.
going to be interesting too.
That's what's interesting to
Yeah.
find out is like if there's something wrong with this kid and they're clearly insane.
Why aren't they
Are they
with her? Are they in a
alive?
hospital? Right, or are they a ghost?
Or are
what
they a
is it?
ghost? If they're in a hospital, why are they coming back to the house?
Right, right. It'll be interesting to see that. Now, we talked about this earlier, and I wrote it down so we talk about it again.
Okay.
With Ben's therapy, we brought up this idea that perhaps the house is, ruining his ability to be a therapist.
Right.
Because he's trying to perform this therapy in the house. Do we think that he's perhaps dooming any patient who comes to see him by the house knowing also these people's fears? Because the house seems to play on people. And
Well,
do you think that the house goes that far?
it's very possible because we did see this week when Eric Stone Street was in the bathroom and he was by himself and the house knew that he was afraid of being in the bathroom with the lights off and being in the mirror, that a ghost manifested itself
Right, and it was the nurse
to
girl.
scare him.
Yeah.
So, it's very possible that... And also, when he had the patient, the woman who was talking about how no one pays attention to her...
It made him not pay
It
attention.
made him not pay attention, and then he passed out.
Right. Yeah.
So
it
seems logical that the house is sort of screwing with them
yeah.
in every way possible.
Just so sad, these
Which is
poor
awful.
unsuspecting people.
Poor unfortunate souls.
Right. So we know next week they found somebody to buy this house,
Right.
as Ryan has teased for us.
Doesn't mean that they actually are going to
Right,
go
I
through
don't.
with it.
I don't think that'll happen. I think Constance is going to find some way to make it not happen.
Right.
But as the teaser showed us, also, it's somebody who wants to tear the house down. We hear that said that they want to destroy the house. What do you think the ramifications would be if this house was destroyed?
Well, I think
Would that free everybody if the house didn't exist, even
No.
though their bodies were still buried?
No. I don't think that at all because in Poltergeist, like he said in this, they built the house over like a burial ground, and it didn't matter that the house was destroyed or
Right,
not.
but this house, the evil was started because of its first inhabitants. So do you think that I'm just wondering if it's the same rules as Poltergeist, because
It would have to
Poltergeist's
be.
reasoning for the haunting was
because they were buried underneath the house.
yeah.
It's possible because we do see that Constance is like going at great lengths to make sure that
That
the
does
house
not happen.
doesn't get sold
and
but-
destroyed.
and destroyed
proxy also.
But who's to say that just because the house is being destroyed that the evil doesn't still exist? If this is a breeding ground for evil,
Yeah.
just because you destroy something and put something else there doesn't mean that it still isn't going to manifest itself in some way.
Right. I wonder if it's more of like a House on Haunted Hill thing where it is actually the evil is the house and it's sort
It's
of
possible.
like manifested itself into the actual structure.
Huh.
We do see next week
That would make sense.
in the teaser that Dr. Montgomery is going to be back in the episode. He was in this episode for a brief second when Violet saw all of the ghosts downstairs, but we did see he's going to be back. They showed him in the teaser too. So it looks like we're going to get more of their story, more of his and Nora's. I'm very excited. I'm excited that Ryan says it's going to be the most sexual episode. I'm hoping for some more naked butt.
I think it's going to be more of young Moira.
Yeah. I just want
Because
one
we
more
see
butt.
we see Constance tell her, you know what to do.
Right. And she says it's a good thing I'm hungry again.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a good thing I'm hungry again.
I know. Any other predictions you've got?
No.
All right. Well, then
I don't have any predictions.
let's end this therapy session, and
Okay.
we will see you guys next week. From everyone here at AfterBuzz, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week. I'm your host, Billy Nilles, with David Schifoletti and Jesse in the booth. What are we listening to?
This is Little Mermaid, what I was singing.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
They come flocking to my cauldron crying.
From producers Kevin Undergaro and Phil Svitek, engineer DJ Jesse Janity, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. If you have questions or comments, be sure to buzz us at info@AfterBuzzTV.com. And you can find us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.